I want to show you a quick video of a presentation I gave a few months ago in front of a group of very advanced marketers. So for it to make sense, I need to lay a quick foundation so that you can get the most out of it. Now in the video, I talk a lot about the 80-20 rule and how to be successful, you need to learn how to turn that rule upside down. So this would be focusing your time on the 20% of things that work and ignoring the 80% that doesn't. So to do that, I'm going to take you on a walk through the history of marketing and identify the key paradigm shifts that occurred in marketing that represent the 20% of things that you need to be focusing on. Anything else is simply a waste of time. It's a very powerful video, so make sure you watch it to the end. Typically, if you look at your business, you take inventory of your business, you see that 80% of the things that you do is pure crap. 20% is actually stuff that's working. And so the whole trick in business and everything you do is if you can shift over and focus on the 20% of things that actually work, as you start to tilt that 80-20 ratio, money starts to come in. And I really want to harp on this because this is the hinging of everything I'm about to talk about. So the first tip and strategy from a philosophical standpoint is take inventory of your business, everything that you do, and just put it on a category. Is this 80% of things that don't really work right now, they're not bringing me a lot of money, and what are the 20% that are? And just start spending your time focusing on the things that actually work. And I think that's one of the first fundamental shifts in terms of income that you'll see. So now I want to talk about the history of marketing. And what I see in the history of marketing, especially direct response marketing, is that there were key times when these key tipping points that allowed successful people to tilt that 80-20 ratio. So what that means is when people started focusing on this particular aspect in marketing, all of a sudden profits came. And that's because they focused on the things that really were proven and working. So as I go through each segment of the history of marketing, just pay attention to it, because if we just focus on those things that people spent tons of years testing and proving, if we just focus on those nowadays, I think we can see some big changes. So the first thing, around the turn of the 19th century, the 20th century, that's when there's this technological boom, you got the printing press and stuff, so now mass media was born, and that's the beginning of marketing. And shortly after that, well, around the same time, direct response was born, because what people were doing is kind of the old 80-20 rule. People were doing a bunch of crap, marketing wasn't working, so people basically needed to find a way to quantify marketing to focus on the things that work. So the first thing that happened was direct response was born. Direct response, the way I kind of define it, is the science of marketing, not just throwing something out there, but putting something out there, tracking what happens, and then incrementally improving the results. And that's direct response in a nutshell. So the very first shift that I saw that happen is people started to actually pay attention to their marketing results. And that's when you found the Claude Hopkins and all those pioneers of direct marketing. They instituted a lot of the principles that we use today, the upsells, the downsells, the cross-sells, the offers, and all that stuff came out of that need for focusing on things that actually work, that whole 80-20 rule. So first tip, this is for, you guys are probably already doing this, but for at least our viewers, the very first thing to do is implement testing, tracking, and tweaking. You always want to be getting better and better and better. And as much as we in this room know it, it's so funny how we don't do it that much. How much are you split? Are you split testing everything? Are you always trying to make what you did better, or are you just relying on your innate marketing knowledge to get better at marketing? Okay, so the next thing is, after direct response was born, you got all this stuff where people are actually making a ton of money. And the key thing is the people that made the money are the people that focused on these strategies, the tilting of the 80-20 rule. Then, I'll just say, the rise of the swipe file. Basically, they started taking what worked, and now everyone was copying it. And that's kind of what a swipe file is, right? You take what works and you copy it. And the way I look at that is just an extension of the testing, tweaking, and tracking. Instead of throwing something out there and making it better, now we're taking what we know already works, starting from there, and then getting incrementally better after that. So how does this apply today? I make this mistake all the time, and I know we all do it too. We say, okay, we want a marketing campaign. What are we going to do? We're just going to go and put something out there. Well, that, I think, is probably the stupidest thing anyone could do, because there's so many examples of successful things. So what I've started to do in my business is, if I'm going to write a sales letter, I'm going to start with one that I think works. I have a product I'm going to do, and it's similar to a product Ryan Nice is doing. So I'm like, well, I could sit here and slave over copy, or I could just take his copy and start with that. Not steal, camera. But like, the point is, start with what works and then get incrementally better. And what you found is when this started happening, those people got successful too. So again, that to me is the shifting of the 80-20 rule. So that was another, I think, big tipping point in marketing. Then you had almost like a lateral shift, which is the rise of Madison Avenue, which is what you see on TV, the big branding thing. And up to recently, I kind of just discounted that. I looked at marketing as these two chasms of big brand versus direct response. But then after hearing that thing I told you guys about Perry Belcher, it was almost something similar. You had a branding campaign going on. And what I saw, I've always wanted to know, how do you bridge these two worlds? The big Madison Avenue, where you throw a lot of money at something, a Super Bowl commercial, and hope to get a bunch of money. How do you bridge that world with the direct response world? And so, I mean, you guys know this too, but what you find is the more branding you have, the more trust you have, the more relationship you have, that multiplies your sales, your direct response sales. So what you saw with like Perry Belcher, who came out of nowhere and did this whole great branding campaign, when he actually went to sell, his profits, his conversions are way better. You look at Jeff Walker that just launched the other day. If he came out from scratch, he would have done well, but because he has all of this proof building up, all of this whole branding behind him, it multiplies his sales. So anyway, so you had the rise of Madison Avenue, and anyway, that's how that fits in the puzzle in my eyes. Then now you have the internet, and the internet was we all know, was a huge shift in marketing because it democratized marketing. Before, you had to have millions of dollars or whatever to do big marketing, but the internet just leveled the playing field. Just about anyone could get on. And so what you have is this big gold rush, right? You remember in the year 2000, 2001, everyone's getting on the internet because it's a gold mine. And the reason for that was because there was no barrier to entry. And so what you saw was a leveling of the marketing playing field, so to speak. And there was this big thing that happened. But of course, the law of numbers, everything averages out, and a bunch of people failed until we met direct response, when direct response meets internet marketing. So you see what I'm saying? You have these shifts where it levels the playing field, a bunch of people come on, and then another shift happens. And every time this shift happens, the people that focus in on this shift start to see huge results. So when the internet came around 94, 95, there wasn't a lot of money being made, and then you had the big .bomb. Not much money was made, but then you had internet marketing meets direct response, and that's when people actually finally saw how the internet plays into marketing. And that starts to take us to today. You see where I'm going? Another thing I'll say about the power of direct response. The whole thing with direct response is you have an input, you have an output. You have an input into like a black box of marketing or whatever, and you have an output of sales, right? So you have 100 people coming to a website or 100 people seeing a sales letter, and then you have a certain amount of sales. Direct response marketing is tweaking the numbers in that black box, hoping to get more results on the other side. Well, what the internet does is it gives you more tools. Like Domar's having trouble with the infomercial space because it's so expensive. That black box is so expensive to get on, so it's harder to tweak and track and make things better. Well, what the internet provides is the cheapest way to do that testing, tweaking, tracking, so people can make money faster. And that's why I say pay-per-click is so great. Not so much that you can get a lot of traffic or anything, but it's the fastest, cheapest way to do direct response, which is testing, tweaking, and tracking. So if you're not doing pay-per-click, like if you don't believe in pay-per-click from a long-term business strategy, at the very least, when you have an idea or you have something, put it out there. Put it out there because you can put it out. You can put out your idea before you even make your product. You can know with a certain level of certainty that it's going to work before you even build a product. And I think that's another one of those shifts. If you start to approach business that way, where you're not saying, I'm going to have this great idea and then I'm going to apply all this great marketing. No, I have this idea, and then by two days from now, I can have a test run on AdWords, and I can know if that is going to work. I can know what the conversions are going to be. And then I apply all my marketing to multiply those results. Am I making sense? Cool. So then you had pay-per-click. We'll get into that. And then you had another shift. And this is where I'm getting to 2010 and beyond. But then you had the social media shift. I look at social media different from most people. People saw social media as this, everyone gets together and has a good time. But what I saw from a technological standpoint is more of a breaking down of the barrier to entry. Now you didn't need to pay. At the beginning of the internet, you needed to pay $100,000 to get a website. It was good, but it wasn't great. Then around 2002, 2003, it came down to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Well, with social media, How much does it cost to put up a blog? How much does it cost to get online? How much does it cost to get on the internet? So now what you saw with social media, and I bet the better word is Web 2.0, what you see is now anyone can get on the internet and start doing things versus before. So what you have is a further breaking down of the whole marketing barrier to entry, making it all the more difficult for us as marketers. Anyway, so now we get to 2010 and beyond. So all through history, we've seen a few fundamental shifts that have been happening. The people that focused in and locked in on the shifts that actually worked are the people that made out rich. So it's the whole 80-20 rule. The more you focus in on that 20% that works, the more you succeed. All right, so what are some steps we can take right now to flip the 80-20 rule on its head? And after that, I'll show you the software, and hopefully it'll make my point more clear. How can we take the 80-20 rule and flip it on its head? Well, let's start with this. What is a successful business? What are things we know that work? We know product launches work. So why would you try something that you're not sure that works? We know direct response websites work, so why would you try a branding campaign? We know that JV partners, we know webinar, teleseminars work extremely well. My point is, to flip the 80-20 rule on its head, focus in, do the things that you know will work. So, so here's the summary. At least, right now, I mean, forget everything I've said. Take inventory of your business, because there's a good chance we're doing a bunch of crap in our business. I know I am. 80-20 rule. Take inventory of everything you do. What is the 80% that you shouldn't be doing, that isn't working, that you want to work but just isn't? And stop focusing on it so much. Focus on what works, and I think that will give a big shift in your business. I went over the marketing history, and there were certain tipping points that occurred. If we start focusing on those tipping points more than we're doing with, new harebrained type stuff, testing, tweaking, and tracking, swipe files, some of these things that we know works, implement those. Make sure you're implementing those at the very least. Improve what works. What's working in your business after you do the 20%? Focus on that. Improve that. Don't forget pay-per-click. It's a fast way to know what's working if you don't know yet. Okay, yeah. So last thing is the 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule everything. Everything in your business, whether it's your copy, whether it's your pay-per-click, whether it's whatever, do the 80-20 rule. Focus on the 20 rule. I don't know. You guys went to, what's his name? Yannick's event. Bedros talked about the 95-5 rule, where he basically says there's 95% of the things in his business that he won't touch. He'll outsource it or he'll automate it, and then he only does the 5%. I think that's powerful. I come from the software world, so I always look for software ways to automate that 95%. But as we heard from Chris and some of the other guys, outsourcing is also cool too. So anyway, I hope that helped. And any questions?